Steve?
Excellent. The tally I have right now is that we have added $69,730 to expenditures, which have taken from the roughly $218,000 we've been talking about, leaves just a shade under $150,000. Actually, I've got it. I use the exact number of 233 of the money we have available. So really, it's 148,503 left. So roughly $150,000 that if you were to decide you could use for either reducing the use of general fund reserves to balance the budget, which would bring that down from 750 to roughly 600, or you could apply it toward tax relief or some combination thereof.
Okay, Tom.
If it was applied to tax relief, what are we looking at for a tax increase?
Why didn't I look that up before I started talking? It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of you're going to drop about 1.2%, which will bring us from 1.99 to about 0.75%, roughly.
I move it to tax relief.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussions? If not,
So what are the rates again?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's $127,000 roughly equals 1% tax rate increase. So looking at what we have available to us, which is just under $150,000, it's going to reduce, I don't have the exact number, but it would reduce the tax rate increase of roughly 2% by about 1.25. So it's going to leave you very close to 0.75. If you want to give me long enough, I'll come up with the exact number. But that's what would be left as a tax rate increase, about 0.75%, if you applied that all to reducing the tax rate.
I would really encourage everybody to vote this way. Contrary to our esteemed gentleman on the end there, who apparently never gets any calls about any tax rates, I get lots of calls. I get lots of calls from residents who say, please don't raise the taxes like you're proposing. I can barely afford to live in my house as it is. I have gotten 0 phone calls saying, please raise my taxes and provide me with better services. So I really, at this point, would urge, we've added a few things to the budget. We've been cautious about that. Maybe a few more things than I had hoped, but they're all there. Let's now continue to keep that tax rate increase to a minimum. Everybody in this city, if you reside in this city, pays taxes. I don't care if you get a physical property tax bill, you pay taxes. If you rent, you're paying property taxes. You're paying it through your rent because you can be guaranteed the landlord isn't going to pay it out of the generosity of their pocket. So every single resident in this city will see a tax increase, not just the people with the motorhomes. So we need to make sure that we're careful with that.
Becky?
And just a follow-up, I'm going to agree with Mr. Witzel. I've gotten a few calls from people who are a little bit irate about the tax increase. But just just as a follow-up, I also take care of elderly people for a living, and I hear them every single day not be able to afford their medications. They're using, people who have passed away, they're using their insulin that would have normally gone into the trash because that's not, it runs them $700-800 a month just for that. So I would also encourage people to vote for this.
Mike?
You said it's 0.75%. Is that what you say?
Yeah, and actually,
what does that equate to in the pure coin? Nickel?
As far as what a taxpayer will experience? First of all, before I forget, I've actually computed it to be 0.82% is what I have right now. So it'd be 0.82% the way it would look right now as a tax rate increase. And, on a, we'll use a typical $100,000 home. Yeah, we'd be looking at about $7.
Any further discussions?
$7 to $8.
Jason?
Yes, I'll ditto the remarks of Mr. Witzel and Mrs. Spiros, and I'll also say that the renters in this community are valued members of the community, and we all pay taxes, and I encourage anybody, whether you own your home or you rent your residence, to just know that you are valued members of this community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Chris?
My earlier comments did not mean to reflect any devaluation of any resident in this city. I don't know if those comments are being directed at me, but I again The question I asked was how much has anyone paid, and no one can answer that question.
Well, I could answer you.
I can answer.
No one can answer that question.
I
No
can
one
answer.
could answer that question. No one can when you throw in all the taxes. So when you just say it's too high, which is what comments you are getting, that's a moot point to me.
Yes, it is.
The other thing is, remember what kind of community we really want here.
Right.
Mr.
Pay
Mayor,
for it.
I'm, I certainly see both sides of this equation. And when it comes to taxation, it needs to be very specific. If we had something here on the docket that we were going to say, we need to raise taxes because of this, or we're going to do this, the pool, or something else along those lines, that's when a tax comes into place. But just to arbitrarily say, what's $15 and let's just raise it, that doesn't do anything quality of life, because you're taking that and you're putting that into your savings account that's already funded in proper relation. So taxes, what might not seem like a lot, and I know we all get different calls. I will tell you, I get calls of people that are upset when it goes up any amount. I mean, believe me, I've had calls over the last 2 weeks. And we all have different things. But I think if we are going to make the decision to tax people, there should be a purpose.
Tom?
Yeah, I know where Mr. Jokic is coming from. However, with this budget, what are we cutting out to diminish the quality of life? What is that, Chris?
2 pages of cuts.
What does that have to do with the quality of life? Tell me which one's on there that affects that.
All of them do.
All right, thank you,
As much as
Tom.
the police
Oh,
wellness.
wait a minute.
test.
Mike?
I've got one other thing. I know, okay, we can hold this down. If the school decides to raise the tax, you've got no control over that, but we get blamed for that.
Yeah, we
When
do.
that tax goes up, they say, why did you raise taxes? And it's the school that raises the taxes. We have no control over that. And I've heard already people say, well, the school's gonna raise 3%, then we should cut back too. Why should we make room for them when we don't need to? I mean, that happens all the time. It's been happening for a long time.
Steve?
No, I was just kind of,
Oh, okay.
yeah, but Steve seems to have something here.
Yes, Ms. McLean.
Yeah, I think that the thing that Steve pointed out is maintaining credit rating. And there are people on here who want to build a pool. There are people on here who want to build a brand-new police station. We need to have a credit rating. There's a couple of instances already this year in my few months here on the council where I've had pleasant surprises where people have come in and mentioned how we benefited from a good credit rating. And that's where I'm coming from here, that we do this to maintain our good credit rating so that when we do fund these things, which everybody talks about having, that we have the good credit rating for it, and it will save us many thousands of dollars.
All right, Tom?
When the school raises taxes, it's through a referendum. I don't want to see us comparing ourselves to other communities in the area. We did the same thing with the room tax. We said, hey, everybody else is charging more for room tax, let's do the same. And then we saw a cut in services. Let's not compare ourselves to other communities from a tax rate perspective. Let's keep it low. Let's get it passed with this adjustment.
All right, I think one way to settle this is simply have a vote. We've got the motion on the floor in a second. Everybody understand? Sure.
On your marks.
All right, go to the board and vote. Thank you.
You know where it's
Mr.
going to
Mayor,
go.
It doesn't
this has
matter.
never happened in 10 years.
Is that right?
No.
I'm yes.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Anything else, Steve?
I think the only thing I would,
What do you do? Which way
Go
did you
ahead
go,
and say
Mayor?
what you were going to
Yes.
say. I wanted to talk about the snow removal.
It carried.